I fell in love with this room. I actually locked myself in here and wrote for a couple of days while I was out here.
In 2015, when Saskatoon native Jen Lane was planning the recording for her new album, this studio wasn't on the list. In fact, she didn't even know it existed. It wasn't until a plan to record south of the border fell apart that fate intervened, leading her on a memorable journey which began last August during a tour stop in Kelowna at the Streaming Cafe.
Our friend Mike, who books us there, said, "Oh, why don't I got a place you can stay? There's nobody staying at the house tonight." So he's showing us around and, "Oh, come and see the studio." And I looked at him and I said, "I'm having just a really hard time figuring out how to make this next record, where I'm going to do it, all that stuff."
Along with an agritourism hotel, the space at Bottega Farms in East Kelowna also offers a little-known studio space. In a stroke of luck, not only was the space available on short notice, but Vancouver producer John MacArthur Ellis, who Lane has worked with in the past, was also free to lend a helping hand.
This room was full of all these different stations. We had mandolin, banjo, old 50-year-old drum, we had bells, we had all the keys set up and the Leslie organs, and we'd sort of finish the bed tracks and John Ellis would come in here and be like, "Oh, what, okay, I'm gonna do the dobro on this song." And this place was just full of instruments.
The title track on the new album, This Life of Mine, was an idea that sat on the bottom of the pile heading into recording. It's a song that Lane began writing when her great-grandfather passed away, and shortly after entering the studio, it was pulled to the forefront.
When we arrived here, my grandfather passed away, and he was an artist and sculptor and poet and a huge supporter of my music. I had told him about this place. He was really excited for me, and then boom, he just left us. And it turned out that I was really surrounded by the people that I needed to be around, and to channel that grief into art. It ended up being the title track. That wasn't intentional either. Even the photo shoot from the album was not intended to be a photo shoot for album artwork, and I happened to be wearing my grandpa's boots in that shoot, and that ended up on the cover. And so it's just funny how everything just sort of connected and was just meant to be. It felt very serendipitous that it all fell together the way that it did.
Over the 2-week recording process, Lane couldn't have asked for a more peaceful experience. In fact, she was so comfortable, she didn't even leave the property. It's a point in time she wouldn't trade for anything, and one that certainly had an influence on the new album.
The caretaker at the house has a little speakeasy bar in the basement with an old 45, an old jukebox that plays old 45 records. They also have a old 8-track player, so I discovered a lot of old Dolly Parton, which probably actually had an influence on the old country sound of the album too, because I was just like, why have I not gotten into this before? She's deep.
Since you released your first album at, 16?
Yeah.
Could you ever think of a recording process like this?
No, that's the thing. This just happened, and it's my favorite thing that's ever happened, I think.
Reporting for Go on Shaw TV, I'm Brendan Osborne in Kelowna.